NWA Power thoughts for episode 9, the final episode before the Into the Fire pay-per-view next Saturday. That's December 14th, 6:05 p.m. Eastern. I am going to run down the pay-per-view card at the end here and give my predictions for Into the Fire. But first, we had Aaron Stevens beating Ricky Starks as a way to kind of worm his way into a national championship match with Colt Cabana. And with the win, Aaron Stevens has now earned himself a shot at the national title. He's also still wearing these flesh-colored trunks, which the announcers are now drawing attention to. And it's just horrifying to see. I mean, it really is just horrifying to watch him wearing these trunks. So, it's just, I don't know. Maybe they ought to put some kind of blue dot over his junk or something, like Vince McMahon wanted to do with Christian's face many years ago because he thought he was ugly. I don't know. I guess it's part of the gimmick. You're supposed to hate the guy, but it just is, not fun to watch. But the question mark got involved here. He actually hit the Mongrovian spike without the referee seeing on Mr. Starks to help Aaron Stevens get the win. We had Joe Galli announcing that both competitors in the NWA Championship match at Into the Fire would have the opportunity to pick their own referee, or as Aleister Black would say, to pick a fight with me. See, it rhymes. But they would be able to pick their own referee for each of the first 2 falls, because it is a 2 out of 3 falls match for the 10 pounds of gold next weekend. If the match goes to a third and decisive fall, there will be a coin flip, and the NWA will then choose who the referee is going to be. So the first thing we get is a video with James Storm, who is at home, and he's cutting this promo on Nick Aldis, and he says it's killing Aldis that he does not know what Camille whispered into James Storm's ear on television the week before, or I think it was 2 weeks before this, because Aldis doesn't know what that was all about, and it must be driving him nuts. And Storm says that he has chosen senior NWA official Brian Hebner to be the referee for his fall, which I guess is the first fall of the match, because he wants, I guess the idea is that he wants the match to be called right down the middle, fair and square. And who better to do that than the senior NWA official? Although I say, anytime you have a referee with the last name Hebner involved, you're just asking for trouble. But apparently James Storm does not feel that way. So Aldis was giving us his thoughts later in the show. We'll get to that. Dave Marquez interviewed Melina at ringside, who said the women were merely the commercial break on television until she came along. She said that she brought out the best in people and that she knew that she could bring out the best in other women here in the NWA. She wants to take the championship away from Allison Kay. That's why she's here. Allison Kay came out. She came out to the ring and she wanted to fight right now, and she took her heels off, and she got in the ring, and Marty Bell and Thunder Rosa came out, and they all ganged up and attacked on Allison Kay. And Melina got into the ring, and she was basically directing traffic, and Marty Bell hit Kay with a pedigree, left her laying in the middle of the ring. Nick Aldis talked about this triple threat number 1 contenders match that did not air, involving Eli Drake, Ken Anderson, and James Storm, and Aldis said that Storm had inserted himself into the match because Drake and Anderson, it was originally a singles match, and he made a comment in here, Aldis, that, we're not in TNA anymore, he said. He said, what have you done to earn a shot at the championship? He said even that triple threat was such a disaster with all of the interference that the NWA, they didn't air it, they didn't recognize it. So why is James Storm getting a title shot? Because, Aldis said, I asked for it. He said the squeaky wheel gets the grease, and Storm is the squeakiest wheel he's ever met. Aldis said he was going to drown him in grease. He said the only way that Storm was going to realize that he didn't really want this match was because Aldis would give him exactly what he wanted. He was going to make him regret getting this championship match. He picked Tim Storm to be his referee in this match. I thought this promo, you really should watch it, was actually really, really good. And Aldis was then asked, of course, about his favorite subject to talk about, which is Camille and what's going on with Camille. And he was annoyed. And he said, look, if you don't see Camille by my side, then her business is her business. And all of this questioning has made her ineffective. And so that's why she's giving Camille the night off at Into the Fire. And I just got visions of Shawn Michaels giving Psycho Sid the night off. The night after WrestleMania when Sid screwed him over. And Sid did not take very kindly to that. And 3 power bombs later, Shawn Michaels was stretchered out of the building. So, but I think if you're going to talk about Cody in AEW being the best promo or one of the best promos in wrestling right now, then Nick Aldis has to be in the conversation. If he's not, number one, certainly he's, I think, in the top 5 of best promos or best talkers in wrestling right now, actively. I mean, you got a guy like Samoa Joe. Well, he's been hurt, though, so where does he kind of fall in there? Joe is still one of the best promos in all of wrestling. But I think somebody like Aldis absolutely belongs in the conversation. We were told that original episodes of NWA Power would return on Tuesday, December 17th. I know that they're taping a whole bunch of episodes along with the live pay-per-view next weekend. And so for those wondering how long is it going to be, they're calling this Season 1. When is Season 2 going to start? You're not going to have to wait very long. There won't be a show this week, a new show, but they will return the following Tuesday. The main event was the Rock and Roll Express challenging the Wild Cards, Isaacs and Latimer, for the NWA World Tag Team titles. The Rock and Rolls here going for their 9th NWA Tag Team titles. Robert Gibson hot tagged out to Ricky Morton here midway through. And Morton ran wild, and he's going crazy, and so he gets Isaacs in a sleeper. Latimer breaks it up. Gibson and Morton, they hit a double drop kick on Latimer. Latimer grabs Gibson, takes him out of the picture. Isaacs goes to take a shot at Gibson. Gibson moves, and Isaacs crashes right into his partner and knocks Latimer, basically knocks him out of the ring. Ricky Morton then rolls up Isaacs and pins him. And the Rock and Roll Express are your new NWA Tag Team Champions 9 times over. This was a feel-good moment. People went crazy. Jim Cornette, who was on this show, they kept his commentary in for the matches on this show, his last show. Jim Cornette physically jumped up into the ring to celebrate with Ricky Morton and Robert Gibson, which is still very odd to watch considering how they feuded all those years ago, and now to see Cornette all buddy-buddy with the Rock and Roll Express and putting them into the WWE Hall of Fame. It is a very weird thing. But he was in there celebrating with him, with these guys like it was 1989 all over again. And they pitched it back to studio. And Joe Galli, this was obviously, inserted into the show. Joe Galli is in studio. And he's paying tribute to Jim Cornette after this, as if the guy were dead. Right down, they had this I don't want to say somber music, but they had this lighthearted music in the background. And online, there were people who started a hashtag, Thank You Jim, because Galli said Thank You Jim at the end of the segment for all of his contributions, not only to this program, but to the entire National Wrestling Alliance. Thank you, Jim. So people started a Thank You Jim hashtag online. The NWA was, this week on this show, they were very gracious to Cornette here. As far as Ricky and Robert winning, that's because Cornette is still going off on that whole thing and telling people to email hate shit, I think, to Lagana and other. It's just, Cornette is still obviously very, bothered by the way everything went down. But on this program, you would never know that any of that stuff was happening because they were actually, I thought, very gracious to Cornette. So as far as Ricky and Robert winning the titles, they've already been announced for a rematch. Isaacs and Latimer are going to get their rematch at Into the Fire this weekend. I have to think that they're going to drop the belts right back to the Wild Cards. If so, then it's fine. It's a feel-good moment. Nothing wrong with it. Anything more than that, and now you get into how ridiculous it is. To have 2 men as your tag team champions with a combined age of 124. I think Robert is 61. I think Ricky is 63. They're old. Feel-good moment, but I don't see the Rock and Roll Express as any kind of long-term NWA Tag Team Champions. They also announced Jim Cornette's replacement on the NWA broadcast team going forward, starting at the pay-per-view this Saturday night. His replacement is going to be Stu Bennett. the former Wade Barrett, who admittedly I have not heard him do much commentary before. He's done some guest commentary on Raw, as everybody does. They'll sit in at the booth every now and then. I believe, and I think he's going to be just fine. I actually think this is an excellent choice, even though I have a very limited body of work on commentary to draw from as far as how he's done before. I believe he did some commentary for the World of Sport relaunch last year. I think he was the GM, but I think he also did some commentary, didn't he? I thought he did. Either that or the What Culture promotion before it turned to Defiant. I'm pretty sure he did some commentary there as well. What's apparent to me, though, is this guy doesn't want to wrestle. It's been years since he's wrestled. Now he's back, but he's back as a commentator. So, Barrett clearly does not want to wrestle. And if he's going to commit himself to the commentary thing, he's got the voice for it. I think it's a good choice. And how he's going to do? Well, we won't have to wait very long to find out. We have less than a week before he makes his debut. And here's one last rundown of the card for Into the Fire next Saturday. Trevor Murdoch takes on the Question Mark. I'm picking the Question Mark to win. It can be no other outcome here. Allison Kay and Ashley Vox team up to take on some combination of Marty Bell, Thunder Rosa, and Melina. I'm going to go with Marty, Thunder, and Melina for the win to build to what will be the eventual championship match between Allison Kay and Melina. Eli Drake taking on Ken Anderson. I'm picking Eli Drake to win. He is clearly one of the top names they're building around here in this promotion. Colt Cabana defends his national title against Aaron Stevens and Ricky Starks in a triple threat match. This could go either way with Cabana or Stevens. Stevens is too goofy for my liking, though, to put the title on him. So I'm thinking, and Cabana just got the belt back. I think Cabana retains. I think Stevens and Starks sort of cancel each other out. And I would have Stevens be the one to eat the losing fall here. Rock and Roll Express defend the tag team titles in a rematch against the Wild Cards, who I think are going to go over and get the belts back. And 2 out of 3 falls for the 10 pounds of gold. Brian Hebner will referee one fall, I believe the first one. Tim Storm will referee the other fall. Nick Aldis defends the 10 pounds of gold against James Storm. I think James Storm, I could see winning the first fall with his referee. And then Tim Storm turns on Nick Aldis to give James Storm the shocking win in 2 straight falls to win the NWA World Heavyweight title. Now, I think Camille is going to get involved. I mean, clearly Camille is going to be involved in some way. She'll be there, even though Aldis gave her the night off. I can't imagine that she doesn't make an appearance here. So if Camille gets involved, it is more likely that her interference somehow factors into the finish as opposed to Tim Storm. So if it goes to a third fall, Camille will come into play. But I just think, nobody, and by the way, that could be the gimmick there, where if it goes to a third fall and the NWA picks a referee, they may pick Camille. Camille could be the referee for that third and decisive fall. So I'm torn on this because there's 2 plausible outcomes here. One is the one that I just pitched, where Storm wins the first fall, and then Tim Storm just snaps and he turns on Nick Aldis. The way that Nick Aldis beat him and took away his chances of ever again becoming NWA champion, he's got every reason in the world to piss on this guy and screw him out of the championship. Although it would kill me because Tim Storm is just such a great babyface. So to turn him heel, it's almost like Backlund. Bob Backlund was that old veteran, the old hand, the old champion coming back. He was already, and Backlund was younger than Tim Storm is now. Tim Storm's in his early 50s. Backlund, when he first came back in the mid-90s, was still in his early, maybe early to mid-40s. But Backlund came back and he challenged Bret Hart for the championship. And Bret beat him fair and square. He beat him on TV, and Bret went for the handshake and he shook his hand. And then Bret made the mistake of going back for another handshake, and that was one handshake too many. And Backlund snapped, and we got to see Crazy Bob for the first time, which was great. So that heel turn was the best thing that ever happened to that guy. But Tim Storm is just such a likable personality. It would kind of be it would be disappointing almost to turn him heel. So the reason I'm torn is there's another plausible outcome here, which is, of course, it goes to the predictable third fall. But Camille is made the referee for the third fall, and then we don't know what's going to happen. Is Camille going to screw over Nick Aldis? Is she going to help James Storm? I think if it goes to a third fall, and Camille is the referee, in the end, Aldis retains the championship. So I've got two completely different predictions here on this, and I don't know which one I should go with here. I'm going to go with the Camille one. I think Camille is the third referee for the third fall. Helps Aldis win, Aldis retains. I'll go with that as my prediction. So there you go. You can let me know what you think, and if you plan on tuning in to the pay-per-view, it is the first NWA pay-per-view since Power launched several weeks ago, and they've been moving these storylines along, and this is the first live show. First time we'll hear Stu Bennett on commentary, so we'll see how all of that goes next weekend.